Okay, good morning, my friends. Today is Friday, June 14th. Here is the daily brief. So, the first thing you want to see is that the numbers are heating back up a little bit. 1250 Russians off the battlefield, 8 tanks, 26 armored combat vehicles, 48 artillery pieces. When you get down to vehicles and fuel tanks, 60 vehicles and fuel tanks, 16 special equipment. Yeah, so it's like it was a week ago. Now, there's some explanatory reason for that. I don't have Andrew Perpetua's list, so I can't show you that because it hasn't been put out yet. But heavy fighting and big Russian assault attempt reported on Mariinka front right now. Russians attempted an assault on the Mariinsky direction. The enemy stormed with 17 units of armor AFVs in the direction of the village of Mariinka. The boys fought back. About the results later. To the 17 units of the enemy's equipment that stormed Mariinka, 2 more arrived, so the total number is 19, of which the boys successfully destroyed 14 units. Heavy fighting continues. So there's heavy fighting in certain directions, and on top of that, the British came out with their intelligence update today and they said this: the Russian Ministry of Defense has increasingly centralized their command and control of pro-Russian irregular forces, highly likely to facilitate their use in offensive operations in Ukraine. And what we know about the Russians is they don't like to spend their actual military. They like to spend conscripts and draftees and people that they pull in from the DPR and LPR and foreigners, and what they like to spend them first, the prisoners from the Wagner Group, that kind of thing. In February 2023, the Russian Ministry of Defense established their volunteer corps, uniting over 20,000 volunteers, reservists, mercenaries, ex-convicts who serve in numerous irregular units under a single command and control framework. Since the formation of the Volunteer Corps, the Russian Ministry of Defense has increasingly employed irregular forces in offensive operations, to which they are ill-suited. Russia's irregular formations are mainly light infantry units which lacked integrated artillery or air support, making them more brittle than Russian regular formations. Consequently, during the last 9 months, Russian irregular units have likely sustained proportionately higher casualty rates than Russian regular units. And that could account for some of the increase in the numbers here. I'm not sure that that's everything, but that could be part of it. Okay. Russia last night targets Ukraine's power grid airfield in a nighttime attack. Ukraine downs most of the targets, but not all of them. Okay, what did they launch and what was hit? 17 out of 17 Shahed drones were down. That's good. But only 7 out of 10 cruise missiles, none of the 3 Iskander ballistic missiles, and they only launched 1 aeroballistic missile, and they didn't down that one either. It hit its target. Okay, air alert was all over Ukraine because they couldn't tell exactly where these were going. The operational command of the Polish armed forces put military aircraft in the sky because of this, and this is a map of where the drones and missiles were coming from. Again, they take this circuitous patterns in order to go where they're going, but it looks like they were going mostly for the Starokostiantyniv Air Base. I don't know if I said that right. I probably slaughtered it, but it's right over here. And notice how they gave this wide berth around Kyiv, which has the greatest air defenses. Okay, but even then, in Kyiv, they're still, like, look at this. In Kyiv region, this was yesterday, firefighters have been extinguishing a fire at an industrial facility for the 3rd day. State Emergency Services reported a total of 232 firefighters, 76 pieces of equipment are currently on the site trying to extinguish the fire that hit just a couple days ago. Okay. Russians, meanwhile, flung a FPV drone into a bus full of civilians, because why not? That's what they do. They attack civilians. These are war crimes, and they need to be punished for that after the war. The enemy continued to commit crimes against the civilian population of the Sumy region. Today, on June 14th in the morning, Russians used an FPV drone to fire at a social bus on the Izman community of Skota district. There were more than 20 people on the bus. Preliminarily, 3 women were injured with varying degrees of severity. The injured were provided with medical assistance. This is what it looks like. Like, look at that. Shot into the bus, and apparently flung into the bus or something. I'm not sure exactly how that all played out. But the Russians do that sort of thing. Here's the Russians call defense of Ukraine terrorism and passes long sentences, like in court legally, against Ukrainian father and son POWs. Both father and son have been in captivity since April 2022. With the charges against them both grotesque and almost certainly based on confessions extracted through torture. These two joined 10 days after the full-scale invasion. They joined the Ukrainian armed forces, and then both father and son were accused under Russian legislation with taking part in terrorist society. No, they're soldiers. That's what soldiers are supposed to be doing. And illegal possession, transportation, etc. of arms and ammunition. No, if they're legally soldiers, you have to treat them like soldiers, but the Russians don't seem to care about international law. There was a powerful explosion in Shebekinko this night, the governor of Belgorod region said. As local channels suggest, a Russian aerial bomb could have fallen on the town. Okay, that's possible, and it's probable. It's happened a number of times before. In other news, the Sukhoi Aircraft Design Bureau in Moscow is on fire. Fire engulfed a building on the grounds of a bureau in Moscow that designs and manufactures some of President Vladimir Putin's most advanced military aircraft, according to a local report. The northwest of Moscow, the Sukhoi Design Bureau is on fire, and the cause of the fire remains unclear. Well, I bet I can guess who did it. In Morozovsk at night, a UAV hit an electrical substation. The entire city is still without power. As Astra found out during a night attack in the Rostov region, a drone hit an electrical substation on a particular street in the city of Morozovsk. There was a fire. The city is without power. The Russian Ministry of Defense said that 70 drones were shot down over the Rostov region overnight. Okay, but 70 drones and just a electrical substation doesn't make sense. But when you dig a little deeper, you find out this. The airfield of Morozovsk, Rostov region, Russia, was attacked by drones. Russian Su-34 and Su-24 aircraft, remember the Sukhoi building, right? That's who creates the Su-34 and Su-24 aircraft, are stationed there, which take part in shelling of Ukraine. Okay, and when you dig a little deeper, you find this. More than 80 Ukrainian drones target Russia in nighttime assault. The Kremlin Defense Ministry claimed that 70 of the 80 Ukrainian drones were shot down over the Rostov region. Now, I don't believe those numbers, but let's say, if so, 10 got through. And what was the result? It's probably more than 10. The Morozovsky region in the Rostov region experienced power outages. We just talked about that during the attack. It's also home to the Russian military airfield basing Su-24, Su-24M, Su-34 bombers. At least 6 Russian military aircraft were destroyed. This is the headline. And another 8 were heavily damaged. And that should have been the headline for everything here. This operation is of paramount importance and will significantly diminish the combat capabilities of Russian forces. That's a good night for Ukraine. Okay, North Korea has sent containers to Russia that could hold nearly 5 million artillery shells, and Putin will likely seek even more when he soon visits Pyongyang, South Korea's defense minister said. He was interviewed in Bloomberg, and he's saying this. Now, when we dig into the article, it says a little bit more, something more specific. North Korea sent containers to Russia that could contain as many as 4.8 million artillery shells, South Korean defense minister said in an interview with Bloomberg. So the number of containers, do the math, figure about how much could go in each container, could be. Now, we don't know that that's what it is exactly, but if it is, that's like more than the West has sent. Like the Czechs, God bless the Czechs, we're struggling to get a million artillery shells together to bring to Ukraine. This is 4.8 million. Okay, Seoul spotted at least 10,000 containers being shipped from North Korea to Russia, Wang Sik said. Pyongyang also sent dozens of ballistic missiles that Moscow troops launched against Ukraine, he said. Okay, and now the North Korean shells are somewhat defective. They don't fire, or they don't land where you were hoping they would, or some blow up, or misfire and but with 4.8 million of them potentially, you can You can have a lot of defects and not worry about it. Okay, meanwhile, Germany has updated the list of military aid delivered to Ukraine. That includes Irish T systems, HIMARS. Irish Ts, by the way, are no joke. I mean, I'm impressed with Irish Ts and all kinds of other equipment. So thank you, Germany. Okay, yesterday we were talking about the Russian ruble and is it collapsing? Now, I have enough econ credits to teach lower level econ classes, and I have. I'm no economist, and so I'm going to only lightly touch on this, and I would advise you to listen to other economists, people who have some real background in this. But they have some significant problems, and the Russians are pretty upset with this. Russia's Speaker of the House is saying that the dollar is becoming toxic. BRICS countries are abandoning the greenback because it's being used as a political tool, he says. Well, not exactly. There are American sanctions that were not allowing you to have it, and so now you're saying, well, we're abandoning it. It's almost like the hot girl that you really want to date, you ask her out and she snubs you, and now you're like, well, I didn't like her anyway. I mean, that's kind of what's going on here. Washington has completely undermined trust in the US dollar as a global reserve currency by using it as a political tool to impose illegal sanctions on Russia, State Duma chairman said. The U.S. government announced a new batch of sanctions against Russia on Wednesday, and it has crippled their financial trading system. Their banks, a number of them are closed, at least temporarily, until they can figure out what to do. Russia's top lawmaker said on Friday that by using the dollar as an instrument of political influence, Washington has pushed other countries to increasingly abandon the greenback. But that's not what happened. You were abandoned by the greenback, not you're abandoning the greenback. I mean, if that was the case, you could have done this months ago, but you didn't. And all these people are standing in line because they're trying to get their money out. And they would prefer dollars to rubles because they know that the dollar is going to be worth $1, well, mostly worth $1 within some time, where they don't know what's going to happen with the ruble. Now, why did these sanctions take so long? Okay, Western sanctions, Ewan McDonald says, Western sanctions seem to be triggering a run on the banks. This could have been done in 2022 or in 2014 or when the war in Ukraine started or in 2008 when Russia invaded Georgia. And he's right. And Gary Kasparov added, indeed, it is impossible to avoid this thought with every new sanction or delivery to support Ukraine. Why not earlier? Pathetic, proportionate response has cost many thousands of lives and hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's still going on. Like, this is why sanctions, I did an entire video about sanctions don't work, and I was saying sanctions alone don't work. And you could have done a lot more sanctions, but why didn't we do it sooner? That's really the question. Okay, yesterday, Zelensky and Biden signed a historic 10-year security deal. I think I'm going to do a separate video just about that. I talked about it last night, and I'll do a separate video just expanding on that later today. Last thing, there's a monument to the heroes of the special military operation that was erected in the Irkutsk region. It bears the name of 41 people, of whom every sixth was a criminal. The heroes, in quotes, heroes, were tried for murder, including of close relatives, infliction of grave harm to health, robbery, hijacking, etc. And these are the heroes. It's almost like a metaphor alert. Okay, that's all that I have. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. To my board level patrons, board members, we're going to do our 9 a.m. Zoom meeting tomorrow, and bring your questions. I'll see you then. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.